Bukele is currently under attack on the very day that everybody with an El Salvador passport is heading to the voting booths. That's right, El Salvador is having its national election today, and that is not stopping the mainstream media outlets like CNBC, CNN from all attacking their former president Bukele. So today we're going to be discussing why these mainstream media outlets are all coordinatedly attacking Bitcoin. We're also going to be discussing what happens to Bitcoin if Bukele is not reelected, as well as so much more. So we're going to be covering whatever you guys want me to cover today in the live stream. So leave your questions down below and we will get to them. But I want to first have a look at this tweet here. It is coming from a chap with the name Bitcoin Zo. And he says, days before the election in El Salvador. Look at this. Look at all the headlines we have coming out at the exact same time. We have a Bloomberg article. We also have a CNN article. We also have representatives in America coming out and also saying some very interesting things. We have here Representative Omar. I'm not going to try to pronounce her first name, but she says, I led members of Congress in sending a letter to Secretary Blinken urging action on threats to democracy in El Salvador. Have a look at the date of this. This is literally right before El Salvador's national election. She says the State Department must review its relationship with El Salvador and defend democratic values. The Salvadorian people deserve free and fair elections without fear of repression. Okay, so she's attacking Bukele in this tweet here. But what's really interesting is she got community noted by Twitter. You can see here, El Salvador's democratically elected Bukele won the 2019 election with a 54% majority. Under his leadership, El Salvador's murder rate has fallen by 93%, and he currently holds a 91% approval rating. So it is pretty interesting to see Twitter absolutely dismantle the narrative of, representatives in America who are coming after Bukele, okay? But again, it's not just government officials in the US coming after Bukele. We also have some of the largest mainstream media outlets. We have Bloomberg. El Salvador's election this week is a referendum on Bukele's authoritarian crime crackdown. He is set to win by a landslide. We can see here, here's another article from Bloomberg using a pretty interesting image. Again, they're talking about the national election, and this is the image they choose to use when they're writing an article about Bukele. Very interesting. The title, even more interesting. A brutal crime crackdown is emboldening leaders across LATAM. Okay, this is the kind of propaganda that we're seeing today, and it extends as far as The Economist. They're also making some pretty bold claims about Bukele. We can see here the CNN, they came out. Look at the date, February 3rd. This was yesterday, the day before their national election. El Salvador, self-styled world's coolest dictator, Bukele, heads for re-election amid human rights concerns. So I think you guys can see the picture that the mainstream media is painting, okay? But, where's the signal amongst all of this noise? Okay, we can see here, the Economist article, they actually said, tattooed gangsters are terrifying, but an unconstrained ruler can be even more so. This was a tweet we put out on the Bitcoin News Twitter account. If you're not following us on Twitter, you probably want to, because we are breaking down everything happening in El Salvador. We can see here, this is a video of people in El Salvador lining up to vote. You can see there's a lot of people lining up to vote in the 2019 election. More than half the population actually voted in that election. A lot of people say, Bukele might have got, 40%, he got a majority. It was 54%, but only half the population voted. Well, that's a pretty significant subset. Okay, so this is the narrative that the mainstream media is painting. This is what I believe is the noise. Okay, but what's the signal in El Salvador? What's actually happening? Well, El Salvador's vice president came out and he actually said El Salvador will stay committed to Bitcoin after election. And he was kind of saying, look, doesn't matter what happens after this election, we're going to stay committed to Bitcoin, which is really promising. And that is what you want to see, because obviously Bitcoin, and as well as many other policies, have significantly helped the country. Okay, we can see here John Dennehy. Obviously, he works with My First Bitcoin, doing some amazing things with Bitcoin education in the company. Came out with this tweet this morning. It was pretty interesting. So he says here, after some research, one of the largest victories ever in a democratic election was 56% in a 1991 Portugal election. So we can see here that 70% of the voters voted for Mario. I'm not going to try to pronounce that last name, but Mario got 3 million votes in that election, and he got 70% of the votes. He won that election by a whopping 56%. And a lot of people are saying, look, is Bukele going to win by such a margin again this year? Okay, doesn't matter by what poll you look at, whether it is an El Salvador poll or even a poll coming out of media outlets in America, a country who does not like El Salvador. All of them show that Bukele is by far one of the most popular presidents in history. Okay, we can see here by this little graphic, Bukele has an 86% popularity figure. In the article we looked at earlier in the live stream about Bloomberg, we could see that Bukele had a 91% popularity figure in the country. Okay, so it doesn't matter what metric you look at, Bukele is by far and away a very popular leader. Why is that? Obviously, one being the fact that he is cleaning up crime in the country. And this is the reason that many of the mainstream media outlets attacking him. Okay, we're not going to comment on whether it's a good or a bad thing. We're just going to look at some statistics of what has happened in Bukele's presidency. So we can see here, this is an article from 2022. So it's not completely updated, but we can see El Salvador has seen a 10% GDP increase, 19% increase in exports, 70% remittances. We can see one of the quickest countries to rebound from the 2020 era. It's seen booming GDP growth, one of the lowest rates of inflation in Central America. That's a really interesting one we might talk about more a little bit later, and why El Salvador is seeing lower rates of inflation than many of the other countries in Latin America and South America. But I'm more interested in the tourism. So El Salvador saw a 30% increase in tourism in 2022. And the further you extend out, in 2023, I believe tourism had doubled since 2021. It was up 100%. Absolutely crazy. And something else that is increasing and is certainly a controversial topic in El Salvador is its, Bitcoin strategy. So I was watching a video this morning from Bloomberg, and they said the Bitcoin strategy in El Salvador has failed. That was their exact words this morning with a video that they put out on the Bloomberg Originals YouTube channel. And they said the Bitcoin strategy for El Salvador has failed. So let's dive into this a little further. Has the Bitcoin strategy failed? Well, here I have the Bukele portfolio tracker. So this website, as you can see by the blue line, it is tracking the, value of the portfolio and the price of Bitcoin. And what it's doing with the big green dots is it's overlaying all of the times that El Salvador bought Bitcoin. Okay, so you can see here, there's lots of green dots way back here in 2021 when the price of Bitcoin was around $40,000 to $50,000. Many critics have been pointing to El Salvador's Bitcoin strategy very loudly and very boldly all throughout 2021 and 2022 when the price of Bitcoin was declining. But we can see, if we scroll to the very, very top of this website, we can see that El Salvador's Bitcoin treasury is in the green today. It's up 0.86%. It doesn't sound like a big increase or a big win, okay? But it's certainly not a failure like Bloomberg is trying to convince you it is. Okay, again, this is a really cool website. I encourage people to check it out. They have documented every single tweet from Bukele when he announced he's going to be adding some Bitcoin to his strategy. And they also do a portfolio tracker for Michael Saylor, which is really interesting as well. I recommend you check out the portfolio tracker for Michael Saylor. It's pretty cool. And speaking of Michael Saylor, we did have the pleasure of interviewing Michael Saylor last year. So if you do want to learn a little bit more about what Michael Saylor's plans for 2023 is and how his MicroStrategy playbook is going, we're going to pop a link to that video after this live stream is finished, right about there. And with all that said, hope you enjoyed this one. Let us know in the comments down below what you thought of this live stream. We're going to be hosting a few of these a week, and stay tuned for the videos that we're going to be putting out on our channel. So make sure you're subscribed to see all of that. And with all that said, I'll see you guys in the next live stream.